Live pictures at 8:51 p.m. Hanoi, Vietnam time. Chairman Kim Jong-un of North Korea and his delegation has now left the Sofitel Legend Metropole Hanoi Hotel, where he just had dinner with President Trump. They'll resume their meetings tomorrow and hold a joint press conference as well. Joining us now, the ranking member of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Democratic Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey. Also with us, president and founder of Eurasia Group and foreign affairs columnist and editor-at-large for Time Magazine, Ian Bremmer. Gentlemen, good morning. Great to have you both. I'll start with you, Senator. You showed some skepticism about this summit between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, hoping that there wasn't a made-for-TV moment. Well, I'm afraid we've passed that point already this morning, Senator. What are your best hopes? This summit is happening, despite skepticism, not just from you, but from a lot of people about what the United States might extract from North Korea. What's your best hope that the United States gets out of this?
Well, it's good to see that President Trump finally made it to Vietnam. And my best hope is that, in fact, we get a definition of what denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula is. For us, that means the verifiable elimination of all of North Korea's nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles and the infrastructure that supports that. A description as to how the pathway forward as to how denuclearization will take place, and the verification regime that will follow. And then I'm sure Kim Jong-un would want to understand the sanctions and economic benefits he might derive from that. Now, that at least would give us a blueprint as to how we're moving forward. But at the end of the last summit, we had a lot of pomp and circumstance, but no substance. We didn't even have a definition of what denuclearization means. So we're not even starting off the same page. And so at least that would be a beginning of the summit.
Is there anything in the history of North Korea or in the history of Kim Jong-un, Senator, that tells you any of that will happen, including the history of June of 2018 in the Singapore summit, where, as you point out, there were some loose promises made in a document, but nothing formal, and investigations afterwards showed that he continued, Kim Jong-un did, developing his nuclear program?
Well, charm alone is not going to get him to give up his nuclear weapons. And the president needs to understand that's one of the concerns I have. What is the preparations that have taken place going into this next summit? The history, including what our intelligence agencies assessed most recently, the Director of National Intelligence, is that they will not willingly give up their weapons. So the question is, if you know that going in, what is it that you do to ultimately change the dynamic of Kim Jong-un's thinking? So I'm concerned that the president thinks that the charm, and that what he thinks is the art of the deal, the art of diplomacy, a lot harder than the art of the deal.
Ian Bremmer, you're the latest contestant on a game we've been playing this morning called Why on Earth Would North Korea Ever Give Up Its Nuclear Program? It's the only thing it has in the world. It has no economy to speak of. It has no culture to export. It's the only thing that makes people listen. It's the only reason President Trump is there in Hanoi today with Kim Jong-un. Why would they give up their nukes?
Well, first, with deference to the senator, this is actually the second time that Trump has been to Vietnam. I know it's a great talking point, but he was there for the APEC summit in Da Nang just a year ago. In terms of why Kim Jong-un would give up his nukes, he won't. And Obama knew that, and Bush knew that. And Trump, I think, knows that. Certainly his advisors do, sitting around the table at that dinner right now. You know, India and Pakistan have nukes, and at one point we put sanctions on them because we said, you've got to give these nukes up. We got rid of the sanctions. You know why? Not because they changed their behavior, because we recognized they were never going to give up their nukes and we needed to have relations with them. So we do need to figure out how to work with countries that know that nukes are leverage. Now, when Trump first became president, he said no ICBMs, no ability to actually hit the lower 48. That was for him a red line. They haven't been testing those weapons. I think if you want to talk about some place what you could potentially get to incremental support, and you'd need Chinese to be involved in this, you could say, let's have a program where the North Koreans dismantle ICBM capabilities and there's inspections. And if you do that, the Chinese are going to work with you, the South Koreans are going to work with you, the Americans are going to work with you, and that's going to include normalization of relations and over time a reduction of sanctions too. Now, do we believe that Trump has the patience for that? Or do we believe that he just wants to cut a deal and run, especially because he doesn't really care about the South Koreans or our troops or the military exercises? And here I'm with the senator. I think that there is a risk that Trump is just going to say, this is the best deal ever. which we've seen in lots of other places with the Trump administration.
Well, remember, he tweeted immediately after the last summit,
no nuclear threat.
No longer a nuclear threat in North Korea. Casey Hunt, you have a question for Senator Menendez.
Senator, good morning. It's good to see you. There have been reports that the president is planning to stay up overnight in Vietnam to watch Michael Cohen's testimony here on Capitol Hill from Hanoi. That, of course, the day before he's supposed to go into more high-stakes negotiations while he's at this summit. Does his kind of obsessive focus on that concern you at all?
Well, it does in two ways, Casey. Number one is what's going on here in Washington and what Michael Cohen has to say about the president basically shows the president to have lied to the American people. He lied to them as a candidate. He lied to them as president. He lied about the Trump Tower deal in Moscow. He lied about the hush payments. In essence, there's a real credibility problem, number one. Number two, it diminishes us in the world with what is taking place in terms of the president's actions. And then knowing that the president seems to have a short attention span as it is, to be focused on what Michael Cohen is saying versus to the elements of how he'll negotiate with Kim Jong-un, that's really dangerous.
All right, Senator Bob Menendez of New Jersey, thanks so much for your time this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.